Hey there, Taka here, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm not actually live streaming this, I'm just recording it straight to my computer. Also, you might notice that there's no game audio here, and as you can imagine from the title of this video, I'm not going to be talking about Final Fantasy X-2, I'm actually going to be talking about Final Fantasy 15. And I've only got Final Fantasy X-2 on the stream to have something going on while I'm ranting about Final Fantasy 15. I'm just grinding, so I'm not progressing in the story, so you're not missing anything if you usually watch my streams. Now, uh, today it was announced that Final Fantasy 15 is basically over. The future DLC has been canceled except for Episode Arden, and there is hold on one second. I actually need to lower my volume because while you can't hear the game, I can, and I've got it very, very loud. Okay. Now, uh things should be working correctly now. Sorry about that. Not a very classy video here, is it? But anyway, so uh everything except for episode Arden has been canceled, and I think they're still doing some of the updates to the multiplayer expansion, but I think their roadmap is much shorter than it was. Whatever the case, that means the episode Luna Freya, episode what was it? Episode Noctis, and that other chick who didn't matter, RNA, right? I think that was her name. Yeah, that's all canceled. Um, so of course people are upset about this. But me, I'm not too upset with it because I hate the game, and I've been mentioning it on Twitter, and I've mentioned it on other social media places. I mentioned it on Reddit and things. Uh, I hate the game, and I think the game is probably the worst game in the Final Fantasy series. And to me, this just kind of echoes the problem that this game has. See, in Final Fantasy 15, it's an early access game. It has always been an early access game. It was a game where the game came out with the barest minimum of features, and oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. um, but it came out with the most bare minimum of features, and people somehow loved it. And I don't know why that is, and I'll get to why I don't like the game in a minute. But the game came out with a bare minimum of features, and it had so many things that you would think should be in the game missing, and I mostly mean story. I mean, the story in 15 is barely existent. See, they figured they could get... Oh, dear. Ignore that. They figured that they could get people to just buy all kinds of DLC episodes in order to, make a bunch of money. And they're basically locking the plot behind a paywall, okay? And this seems to have worked because they did pretty well, I think, in terms of sales, but I guess somehow or other they managed to lose $33 million. And that is why Tabata, the director of the game, has left the company, or presumably at least, and now everything's canceled. So, but they must have thought they had something good going here. They must have said, hey, we're totally going to make bank by selling this game piecemeal. And that's the kind of attitude that early access games have. And for those of you who aren't too familiar, early access, maybe because you play on consoles as opposed to PC like myself, early access is when they sell you a game that isn't done yet, and they expect the amount of money that they pull in to pay for future development of the game. And normally that would be crazy because, well, it doesn't say it's an early access game. Usually they kind of announce that a game is in early access. But Final Fantasy 15 didn't do that. But it had the kind of content that an early access game does. A content where the game is just barely there. And for those of you who have not played the game, you pretty much have this big open world, but nothing in it. And there's quests to do, but they're all the same thing, really. It's just the same repetitive go kill a thing over and over. How does that thing keep killing me like that? What the hell? Anyway, but please don't. Yeah. But they shit. Where was I? That's what I get for playing this game while I'm recording, right? So it's it is an early access game. And hell, they released an update not a year after the game came out, saying, no, here's the rest of the content. Here's what you've been really waiting for. Here's a bunch of extra stuff, and we'll call it the Royal Edition instead of calling it the complete game. But they, at the time, said, well, this is the complete game, but it turned out to not be the complete game because they still had 4 DLC chapters and a multiplayer thing hidden in the back room. And now that's was going to be out, but now it's not. So people paid $60 for this game and then paid another who knows how much, $30 or something, to get the Royal Edition upgrade. And I think maybe they actually, I don't know, did they or did they not allow pre-orders of this new content? I have no idea. But you were told that you were getting the complete game, but anybody who's played the game and actually paid attention will tell you that this game is not complete. It is missing so much content. The plot makes no sense because it jumps around and expects you to not only buy the DLC that already is there, but the DLC that did not and will not ever come out, at least as far as things are concerned, as far as we know. But let me get to why I think this whole game sucks. And I'll tell you, and for the record, this game that I'm playing, Final Fantasy X-2, it's definitely got problems itself. But I would say that this is definitely better than Final Fantasy 15. I would say that every Final Fantasy game ever made is better than Final Fantasy 15. And yes, that includes Final Fantasy II, because even though I find Final Fantasy II to be a less pleasant game to play than 15, it is a game that was made in the late 80s before anybody really had any idea what they were doing with RPGs, and so it has an excuse for being bad. It is a terrible game, but it has an excuse to be terrible. But Square Enix has been doing this stuff for 30-odd years, and clearly they still don't fucking get it, because 15 is... it's a mess. They have a habit of trying to reinvent the wheel with Final Fantasy games, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. For example, with this game, 10-2, the battle system is great. They reinvented the wheel and they made it really good. But quest-wise, the game kind of sucks, and that is because they tried to reinvent the wheel on how the game progression should work. But with 15, they completely upended everything and made it like, we're going to try and explore this whole open world Western RPG type of thing, but without actually understanding or doing any of the things that makes people like those sorts of games. Now me, I don't like Western RPGs. I hate them. I have no interest in them. And part of it is because you spend a lot of time just exploring and running around and not really getting anywhere. And some people enjoy that, and that's fine. But I don't. And I feel like Square Enix doesn't understand why it was that people like that. And that's because they give you lots of stuff to do. They give you a variety of things to explore and a variety of different things to do and skill trees that have depth and where... oh, I didn't mean to do that. Everything has something going on in these big open world Western RPGs, and people enjoy them for a good reason. I might not enjoy them, but I see why they enjoy them. But with Final Fantasy 15, it is devoid of all of those things. You have, and I'm kind of going on a rant here. I'm getting in I kind of wanted to do a pseudo review / rant, but it's really just getting ranty at this point. But whatever, I don't give a shit. Anyway. I hope the thing doesn't kill me again. Anyway, so you have, like I said, this big open world, and on one hand, that's great. But then they lock you to driving around in your car. You can't really leave the road in your car until later in the game, and even then, that doesn't work too well. and you the quests are all the same, and it takes forever to get anywhere. There's not a lot to do in between places there, and again, all the quests are the same damn thing. So you're you're not doing anything. You're just running around killing mobs, as I am doing right now, of course, but for so little payoff because ultimately. Okay, those things have like instant death or something. That's definitely what's going on here. Um, but oh crap. But uh, you know, where was I? Shit, that thing killing me kind of threw me off here. Sorry. Um, I think usually people when they do videos like this, they just record some random gameplay and then overlay their rant on top of it later. God damn it. Um, but I didn't do that this time. Uh, because I'm obviously not very good at what I do here. Oh God, give me a break. Um, anyway, so in oh my God. Okay. Um, so where am I going with this? Besides the fact that the game sucks, right? Um, you have like okay. Let me get to the combat. The reason why the combat is crap. Uh, if you've ever died in Final Fantasy 15, you suck at games because you can't die unless you have zero Phoenix Downs, and they're very cheap to come by, and you can find them everywhere. They're not expensive to buy. I hate these enemies. God, are you kidding me? Let's run. Um, but you know, the combat is mindless. You just sit there and you crap. You mash one button over and over. That's the combat of Final Fantasy 15. You don't even have to mash. You can hold the button down. I played through the whole game, and while I have come close to dying a couple of times, I've never actually died. I never game over even once because it's mindless. Even I don't even remember if there's difficulty settings. I think I played on normal, but there's either way. Even if you get pounded into the dirt over again, you can't really die. So, oh crap. Um, so, you know, there's no challenge to it, and a game doesn't have to be challenging, but people seem to act like it is, forgetting that you can't die. Uh, but the combat, you have again your one button holding nonsense. You have your stupid teleport attack, which is nice and all, but that's really the only combat option you have because magic is very difficult to use effectively. You have to kind of plan ahead because it has this big explosive range and it hurts your allies, and you have to craft it, and the good crafting materials are hard to find. It's not really worth it to you can't just cast spells every match, which means you spend most of your time just mashing buttons, and it gets you through the game. It's not that like you don't need more than that. It works, but it's boring because it's the same thing over and over. And yes, I realize the irony of me literally just killing the same enemies over and over here. Oh wait, why did I do that? Fuck. Um, but I'm not doing this for the whole game. Whereas you are in Final Fantasy 15, because that's all you have to do. That's all there really is to do. And somehow it works. But, anyway. Let me go back to the story, and back to my original point here. The story is not complete. It isn't even close to something that you could call complete. It's virtually not there. You spend the first 3/4 of the game just roaming the countryside and driving around, getting nowhere, and it does you very little good in forming the world. There's no the world building is crap. I mean, let me put it this way: you have to watch a movie before you play the game in order to understand the game. And in my opinion, the movie is actually better than the game is. But you know, why? For what purpose would they do this other than to get you to buy another thing, to make you buy the movie, to make you buy the anime series? It's all been a cash grab from the very beginning. And even after all of this side material, all, the movie, the anime series, all the DLC, you still have no real there's no connection to the world that you're in. Did they both? Oh crap! They just both oversold. That sucks. You have no emotional connection to this world. And if you say you do, I have no idea how you managed to pull that off, because I couldn't feel nothing for none of these fucking characters. Even when important characters die, even when they suffer terrible things and injuries that cripple them for the rest of the game, I don't care, because the game doesn't bring you any investment into these characters, And you I mean, how can you care about characters you've never been made to know? Yeah, sure, you got Noctis and his crew, but even then, even though the game is all about them, they're paper thin. And then it expects you to buy the DLC to know about these big events that apparently, bring some depth to their character, but in the end really don't. And they expected you to even get the backstory on the villain, find out his whole deal, learn what makes him tick, find out what happened with Luna Freya during, whatever part of the game that her DLC was supposed to be in. This Aranea character who never did a fucking thing. What are we supposed to know about any of these characters? Well, the game doesn't tell us, and we were supposed to buy the DLC to get it, and now the DLC is never coming. So, where does that leave fans of this fucking game? I say that I pity you guys. I pity you for two reasons. I pity you because, number one, you somehow you like a terrible fucking game. But besides that, you're left without anything. You're left. You know how this must feel. Actually, I know how this feels. I know exactly how this feels. It feels like I feel about Xenogears, where you've got this entire story, this entire world, built before you, and now you're left with nothing because they've decided to just pull the rug out from under you and say, well, you're never getting the rest of the story. And that sucks. I know how that feels, but Xenogears was a much better game than Final Fantasy 15, let me tell you. Don't kill me, thank you. But I mean, I do feel bad for you, but at the same time, you've allowed Square Enix to get away with it for the entire process of this game being a thing. And I mean, you've cheered on the DLC, and you've cheered on all the minor stupid updates, and oh, now the game's got mods, and now you can dress up in, custom costumes and have custom weapons. Big fucking whoop, the game still sucks. There's still fucking no depth to the combat. The story is still bullshit. I mean, there's nothing to be excited about here. And I mean, I think that on one hand, you guys deserve it because, again, you cheered this piece of crap on. But on the other hand, it does suck. And, I think that ultimately we need to tell Square Enix, look, this is not what we want. I think that fans of the series want more, or want something more like, the games where the series was most popular. They want more games like Final Fantasy 7 or 9 or 10. They want more games that feel like that feel engrossing, that bring you into their world and have great combat systems and ability systems. And, excuse me, something that really drags you in. And these latest games, even though I love Final Fantasy 12, I like this game a lot. I like the 13 sequels pretty well. Even though there's all that, I feel like, Square hasn't been doing what the fans want. And on one hand, we had things like Bravely Default, which did really well for most of the game until it sucks near the end, but that's a rant for another day. But that was a step in the right direction. What Final Fantasy 15 did is completely opposite of what Square Enix should have done. They need to go back to what made fans love the name Final Fantasy in the first place. They need an old school style RPG, but with a modern twist, like what Final Fantasy X was. That game was a new game, a new experience, something that was totally different and unique, but at the same time made fans feel like they were actually playing a Final Fantasy game. Whereas 15 actually opens by saying that it is a game for fans and first timers of Final Fantasy, but I don't think it's for either people. I don't think fans really like that game because it's nothing like any of the games that they fell in love with. Whereas it's not really for the new players either because it doesn't feel like any other Final Fantasy game. So if you're coming into it thinking, oh, I'll try this one and maybe I'll play the others, well, the others are going to, depending on how you feel about 15, either they're going to disappoint you because it's nothing like 15, or you're just not going to end up playing these much better games because 15 made you not want to play them because you think they're all going to be like 15. An empty game in an empty world with nothing to fucking do with an empty combat system. That's what people, I think, will think about this game. Maybe some people who are really into Western RPGs will like Final Fantasy 15. But I think that Lightning Returns, the third game in the Final Fantasy 13 series, did that kind of thing way better than Final Fantasy 15 did. It feels like that game is like a beta for 15, but it did everything better in every way. And so I don't know what Square Enix was hoping for. I can't imagine what made them think that this was a good idea. And hell, it didn't even start as Final Fantasy 15. It was Final Fantasy Versus 13 until it went through a billion different reboots and a bunch of different teams and directors. And then finally we got something that doesn't really satisfy anybody. Or at least it didn't satisfy me. And as far as the people I personally know, I can't speak for everybody, but for the people I personally know, everybody was disappointed with it. And it's because we are all fans of the series, and it did not give us the kind of gameplay that we wanted. We knew that it was going to be different. We knew from the trailers and the gameplay videos that it was different, but it didn't bring us anything resembling Final Fantasy. It would be like, buying a Final Fantasy game that plays like a Tales game. It's different, and while it might be okay, it's not what we want out of a Final Fantasy game. But I don't think that it really did well on its own either. There are some games that I think that, like for example, Final Fantasy 13. I feel like that if that game wasn't called Final Fantasy, it would have been received a lot better. It's not a great game, no, but I think that if it wasn't being propped up and expected to be amazing based on the name, then people would have liked it better. And I think that might be true too with Final Fantasy 15, or maybe because it doesn't have the pedigree of the Final Fantasy name. If it was called something else, it might have just faded into obscurity, And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the game is great and I'm just an uncultured idiot. I have no idea. I'm just telling you my thoughts on it. But ultimately, clearly, Square Enix was not satisfied with the game's performance, with how much money it lost. It lost $33 million, or rather the studio itself lost $33 million within the Final Fantasy 15 universe. I think there's like a proper name for it, like fucking 13 had Nova Chrysalis or whatever the fuck it was. So 15 I think has its own universe name, but whatever the fuck, that's the project, that is their thing. Right? So that whole project lost $33 million. Something clearly went wrong. And Tabata is now working elsewhere. And I mean, I don't see myself ever playing a game that Tabata makes again because of how bad 15 is. I don't even know what else he has made. But, looking at where Square Enix stands now, where I mean, yeah, they've made some successes. They just put out Dragon Quest XI, and that's been really well received. They put out Nier Automata, even though that wasn't developed by them. That was developed by Platinum Games. But they have been putting out some decent stuff, even RPGs. No, I was going to say Ni no Kuni, but that was Namco. But yeah, they're putting out some good stuff, but at the same time, they're not putting out the kind of stuff people want in regards to Final Fantasy. And there's been that mobile game. I tried that; it was fucking crap. But they're putting a bunch of money into that fucking mobile game, and there's other things like how Bravely Default that could have been really good, and in some ways it was okay. But Bravely Second as well. But that I think is what Square Enix should be doing, is focusing on the more traditional classic RPGs with a fresh coat of paint, something that looks as good as Final Fantasy 15 did, but plays like something that people will love, because until they do that, I think Square Enix is going to continue to hemorrhage money. But based on what they've said in these interviews from the last day or two, they're basically saying this strategy isn't working, so we're going to dedicate more to mobile gaming or whatever. And I don't think that is going to do them any favors. I think that they need to really go back to their roots, or otherwise they're going to continue to hemorrhage money, and it's only going to get worse. And it's been bad for a while. There's, like I've said, 13 was not well received by a lot of people. I think it's okay-ish. 14 has been doing really good though, so that's a plus. I've not played it. I don't play MMOs, but apparently 14 is actually really good, and that's good for Square Enix. I hope that they have success with it, but I hope that Final Fantasy 16, when it comes out, and as I'm sure it will, I'm sure they're not going to stop making Final Fantasy games just because one of them failed. I mean, that didn't stop them after 13 and 2 sequels of it. But I hope that with 16, they do something closer to its roots, but with a fresher face to it. Something like how Final Fantasy 9 was. They need to kind of give fans that kind of feeling. They need to do Final Fantasy 9 again. And I don't mean a remake, and I don't mean something exactly similar to it, but something that feels like that really is going to draw in fans of the series, and is also going to bring in new fans that are like, oh, hey, I've never played a JRPG. I want to do that, and this looks like the thing for me. But as it stands, I don't see Square Enix learning their lesson. I think that they're going to continue down this path, and I don't think it's going to turn out well. And as for 15, Square Enix already got your money, suckers. So, yeah, 15 sucks, and you're a sucker for buying it. Then again, so am I. I bought it, but that's because I'm a loyal fanboy, because I'm a fucking idiot. But even still, I wasn't planning on buying any of the DLC, and if it would come out, I wouldn't have bought it. And even though our episode Arden still is coming out, I'm not going to buy it. And I might watch it on YouTube or something, but I ain't going to buy it. I have no intention of buying it, even if they give it away for $5. Ain't going to buy it. Even though Arden is probably the only redeeming factor of that game. He is too good for that game. Arden is one of the best villains in the entire franchise, and it's a shame that he was shoved into a shitty game. So, yeah, that's about it. I've been ranting for quite a while now, and it's going to take a while to upload this. But yeah, that's where I stand on my stance on Final Fantasy 15. Game sucks, and yeah, they're not doing anything for fans of it, and they're not doing anything for the fans of the series. So sorry for this long-winded rant. I just wanted to kind of get it out of the way. I didn't want to do it while I was streaming, because I would, lose focus and everything. But yeah, that is my Final Fantasy 15 rant. I was going to do a full review, a proper review with going over each individual thing, but I didn't do that because I don't have any footage of the game, and I'm not reinstalling a 100 game. All right, so that's it. See you later, guys. And if you liked the video, then feel free to subscribe. I do streams all the time, like almost every night. At the moment, I'm playing through Final Fantasy X-2 with a low percentage run, and I played a bunch of other stuff you can check out. So yeah, if you like it, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. You know the whole deal. Every YouTuber says that shit. So yeah, see you later, guys. Bye.